So my name is Adam Kieffer. I'm a teacher at the Hubbs Center for Lifelong Learning, which is a school that's part of St. Paul Public Schools. And I'm an ABE teacher, and I'm on our distance learning team. And just a little bit of context, try to be quick here. I wear 3 hats. I'm a teacher. I'm on our distance learning team at my school, and then I'm also on our statewide distance learning team. In Minnesota, ABE, we don't have a state director around distance learning. So we have like a small team, and each of us contribute X number of hours to that team. And we facilitate PD, policy, all the stuff around distance learning for the state. There's the school. I work for St. Paul Public Schools. Our school is called the Hubbs Center for Lifelong Learning, or just Hubbs for short. We are the largest ABE program in Minnesota in terms of learners, total hours, and distance learning hours. Pre-pandemic, we were around 1,100 learners a week, and pandemic, we're between 700 and 800 learners a week. So a big drop, 35%, something like that, maybe 40%. Depends on the week, depends on the month. And then you should know also that our funding model is based on contact hours. So that drives a lot of how we do everything in Minnesota ABE. Of course, we get some federal funding, some grant, but the majority of our funding comes from state funding, which is tied to seat time, contact hours, proxy hours. If the students don't show up, we don't get the money. So a lot of what we do is based on that funding model and that algorithm. Oh, I should also mention Literacy Minnesota is the fiscal agent for the distance learning grant. And so part of my hours are under that oversight. So here's what you came to hear about. At the beginning of the school year, maybe a week before our opening teacher week, my supervisor, Renata, said, "Hey, I didn't see my name on the fall schedule." And I was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I think you're going to be doing something called push-in digital literacy instruction." And I was like, "Great, what is that?" And so that's where it started for me in August of 2020. And so there's 3 of us that did this year, actually, at my school. Excuse me. 2 of the teachers were math, and then there was me doing digital literacy. And what the push-in is, or what it means, is that I show up in their Google Meet classes. And by the way, all of our classes up until just a couple weeks ago were fully online. And Google Meet was the tool we used. And so I would show up in someone else's class, and then I would kind of take over presenting on those in those classes. So I'd kind of be like the visiting teacher, and I had a 2-week rotating schedule, and I would visit all ELL classes, and a huge range of ELL classes from pretty low to very high. So I had to design my lessons to sort of hit the middle there. The Google Meet classes are an hour and a half, and I would probably do, the teacher would welcome students and take attendance and maybe do a warm up, and then I would do probably an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes of that hour and a half Google Meet class. And so the classes are 2 to 4 days a week, plus all the students had to work on some distance learning platform. And the class sizes are between 10 and 25 on average, of course, depending on the day. And like I said, so I would show up in the Meet and take over presenting, and then the teacher would manage some of the other stuff while I was instructing. So the teacher would manage the muting, the chat, class-specific questions. If a student had a question about something I didn't know, maybe the teacher's class website or something, they could handle that. I would always build in time for learners' questions, which proved to be a key component to, well, not always. I mean, I tried to, but I always made room for learners' questions, which would drive subsequent. If I did the lesson again, it would drive how I changed my lesson for the next class I taught that lesson on. So my lesson became a model for the teachers I was visiting, their class, they would watch me teach it, and that could be a model for them. And then the content I was presenting, that could also be sort of a model for them to launch into further on the topic, deeper on the topic, revisit the topic, approach the topic in a different way. Because I was not their regular teacher, and because I was only visiting their class once every 2 weeks, I really had to design my lessons to be sort of one-off lessons, sort of self-contained. And so the teacher could have the opportunity to delve deeper on their own if they wanted to. They could use my slides, which I'll show you a couple examples in just a minute. And then they could, if they wanted to, review, adapt, or expand on those slides. So on the right, you'll see a graphic of Minnesota ABE's standards. So you got the college and career readiness. You got the transitions integration framework, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, called the TIF. North Star digital literacy standards, and then all kinds of other stuff under teaching and learning here. So where did I start when my supervisor told me I'm going to be doing digital literacy instruction? Well, I started with our approved digital literacy standards, which is North Star, and that's homegrown. That's homegrown out of St. Paul, a consortium of groups from St. Paul. Those standards are here. I'm just going to show you the website real quick. I'm not going to put it in the chat, but if you're not familiar with these are amazing set of standards to start with, especially for those adult learners who are very low digital literacy skills. So there are standards and assessments and online curricula. And if you don't know about this, I can refer you to all kinds of great resources, but I'm sure many of you have heard about this. It's all kind of all in one deal here. Assessments, standards, and curricula, if you are a member. So my slides, I'll just show you. Here's my very simple free Weebly website. Going into next year, I'm hoping that our program will be able to access Google Classroom. We were not able to do that through our district this year. I'm really hoping that they will allow us to do that next year. So we'll see. In which case, I would transfer some of this to Google Classroom. But for right now, it's on Weebly. And the lessons are here. These are public. You guys can take a look at these. You guys can download these. So I just have a little caveat here. There's no lesson plans yet. And I do have plans to turn these into some sort of course or some sort of shareable OER. But for example, here's a lesson on Google Drive and Docs. This is just kind of what my slides look like. I won't take too much time on this, but I just wanted to give you an example of what the students would see. They would see me. I'm your digital literacy teacher. Just basic stuff, you know, lesson objectives, all the basic teacherly stuff. Lots of pictures, lots of explanations. I go real slow. I start with, you know, even at this level, what are documents? Where does that word docs come from when we say Google Docs? Just some real basic stuff. Give them examples. Okay. There's always time for questions, and students always have questions. So I always try to answer their questions. And when I answer them, I show them. It's always about showing them. I'm always going out to Google Drive and showing them. I'm going out to you know, Gmail and showing them. I'm going to YouTube and showing them. And I'll typically include a few resources like links to how-to videos on YouTube or a screencast I might make. And then I always end with a quiz, and the time flies by. So let me just show you maybe one other example. Windows basics, internet basics, social media. Social media, understanding digital citizenship. Oh, I should show you that real quick too. So this is St. Paul Public Schools. They have a curriculum around digital citizenship, and you can see some of the topics there. So again, this was a place for me not to start from scratch. I'm always trying to find the resources that are already out there, adapt them, use them. I do not want to reinvent the wheel. I don't have time for that. None of us do. So just pulling from resources that already exist and are close to home has been my strategy. Where was I? Okay, I was going to show you this social media lesson. So just starting with the basics, you know what I mean? Just the big ones, talking about what they use, what they don't use, and then getting into some nitty-gritty stuff. Just talking about the difference between website and the app, why they're different, talking about smart devices, talking about who uses social media, just kind of making them aware of some facts. And then I'll go into, even had to talk about baby boomers, because that's a phrase that the OK Boomer meme came into, prevalence this past year or 2 years. So they're curious about that. And that's often part of how they show data is baby boomers. So we have to talk about that. So I just try to make it as relevant as possible. I try to show them things as clearly as possible, what ads look like, how to recognize ads, how to see them, how to opt out of them. What are influencers? What does that mean? Can you trust them? How to spot ads, how to know when you're being sold something. Just kind of all that stuff. Misinformation, we talked a lot about that. It was a great opportunity. I was teaching this right after the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol in DC. So I had lots of stuff to talk about how quickly misinformation can spread on social media. So nitty-gritty stuff, relevant stuff. And I tried to be, with this stuff, I tried to be as objective as possible, but at the same time, trying to stick to the truth and just talk about how quickly things can spread. How we talked about how, for example, people can just make fake stuff like this and just spread it on social media, and it has no bearing, there's no truth, but it just gets spread. And so lots of stuff like this. Just is trying to make it as real as possible for them in their daily lives, and then how to spot fake news, what to do, and we looked at some examples. So anyway, so those are some examples. Let me get back to my actual slides here. So started with NorthStar and some other resources I have linked here. I think you guys will get links to these slides so you can check these out. I just showed you a couple of my slides. As I said, I designed them to be self-contained with resources for them to work on outside of class. If I needed to, I would make how-to screencasts for learners. If you don't know what I mean by how-to screencasts, like let me pull up our bank that we have, like how to update Google Meet on your phone. So either me or other of my colleagues would make a short video about how to do something that students need to do to attend class. And then we have a bank right here of how to do stuff. So a bank around our distance learning platforms, a bank of videos about how to use Google Meet, a bank of videos for just generally using their phone, right? Because students need to do an update on their phone and they don't have room. So how to back up your phone, how to free up storage. Again, these are all for the most part screencasts or YouTube videos about how to do these things. So this is our bank right here, and then also ones for teachers too. And then the teachers can always share my slides with learners for them to check out that stuff after class if they want to review. And I plan to, like I said, all of my lessons are here. You can access them right now. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see I have some that are a video. So it's just me talking through the lesson as if I was teaching the lesson to them. And that's a screencast. So it's just me talking through my slides. And then they can watch that if they were absent from class or if they want to review again. And it's on YouTube, so they can do all the cool stuff, like they can watch it quickly or slower. It's always there. So that is something I've been trying to do for them. Some of my newer lessons, I have not had time to do that, but I plan to go back and do that. My plan is to build this up into some course. I hope that we'll get access to Google Classroom, and in which case I'll build that into a short course, or some form of OER, some way to share this better than just a list of links to slides like I currently have. So that's on my to-do list, very high on my to-do list. Some takeaways real quick as I wrap up here. The learners and my colleagues love it. They love the model, they love the content, and they love me because I do a good job, and that's just a fact. And students have time to ask questions that I can't anticipate, so I take their questions, and then if I'm going to teach that lesson again, I build that maybe that topic or that relevant question into the next iteration of the lesson. Or I'll make a screencast for them to deal with that specific question. I'll add that to our screencast bank and send that out to teachers. I've built up a catalog of shareable, adaptable content. We do offer, and we have continued to offer, what we call computer basics class. Some of what I'm doing is not really traditionally covered in that class, like the social media stuff and misinformation. It's a lot more like basically how to physically use things and how to understand the vocabulary. So I'm thinking that in the future, we might be able to integrate some of the stuff that I've developed this year into what we already have or our already existing computer basics class. The challenge for me was always designing for a wide range of ELLs because, man, not only a wide range of English skills, but a wide range of digital literacy skills as well. One woman thought, I remember fielding a question about, I was telling them about how to check their internet speed. And a woman asked me how she can control the speed in her car. And she thought you could, maybe if you can check the internet speed on your phone on a website, maybe you could control the speed of your car through her phone. And she was curious about that. And so just, you never know what kind of questions you're going to get from people about digital literacy until you start talking about it. Big problem, again, our funding model. So the funding model is probably, this model of push-in for us is probably unsustainable because it's 2 teachers at the same time in one class, right? Me, I'm coming to her class, and then like Laura, for example, she's their teacher. So, and then the other problem is that I could not visit every class. We have, I don't know, 50 classes or something. So I had a rotating 2-week, I think I had 7 or 8 teachers that were on my rotating schedule. And then my stuff is not yet ideally shareable in a open educational resource yet.